Welcome to Accessibilities with Dr. Dee and Marquis. Hi, I'm Dr. Dee Giannetti, and this is my co-host and service dog, Marquis. High five, Marquis. Atta boy. Marquis, say hi. Say hi. Atta boy. And who's our special guest today? It is Tammy McLeod. Yay. Okay, lay down. Go ahead, lay down. As you know, I do this show to highlight inspiring people who happen to have disabilities, and as well, those whose lives are touched by disability, such as family members. We also like to highlight organizations, businesses, and town departments to show their reasonable accommodations for their products and services. Disability is a universal facet of the human experience, and at some stage of their lives, disability will affect almost all members of society, at least temporarily. Through birth, accident, natural disaster, illness, war, or poverty, anyone can become disabled without regard to age, class, race, gender, or religion. So today, my special guest is Tammy McLeod, who will be talking about ambiguous loss. Tammy serves with her husband Pat as Harvard Chaplains for Cru, an interdenominational Christian ministry. Tammy is also the director of college ministry at Park Street Church in Boston. Tammy and Pat are the parents of 4 grown children, including Zach. Over a decade ago, when Zach was just 16, he suffered a severe traumatic brain injury and instantly became disabled for life. Tammy and Pat are also the authors of Hit Hard, One Family's Journey of Letting Go of What Was and Learning to Live Well with What Is. So welcome, Tammy. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you.
So why don't you tell us a bit about Zach?
So,
you can tell us a little bit about your family first if you want.
Sure.
You and your husband have a ministry?
Yeah, so we are working at Harvard, and we work with 18 to 22-year-olds, so the undergraduates, and mentor them and help lead small groups and do some speaking there. I also lead grieving groups there and groups on ambiguous loss. Wow. So I enjoy college ministry.
Yeah.
Then children, we have a 31-year-old in Australia, our daughter Chelsea.
Oh, wow.
And another son who's just younger than Zach. His name is Nate, and he's in LA. He's in the film industry. And then Soren is a senior at Harvard, so he has 1 semester left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You must be proud of all of them.
Yeah, they're great. And then Zach is the son that we'll be talking about today, but he is living in a group home, so he's 25 minutes from us. So he's living with 4 other guys his age, and there are 5 staff in the house.
Oh, wow, that is great. That's great. So why don't we start off by talking about what is ambiguous loss?
Okay. When Zach was injured, I was hoping for a full recovery, but by year 1...
Why don't we just back up a little bit and talk about...
Do you want me to go back?
We can talk about what happened to Zach.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
then we'll get to ambiguous loss. That's okay.
Okay, all right. So when we were at a meeting with college students in Boston, my husband got a call from someone after he turned on his phone after the meeting was over. And my son was saying, "Why didn't you pick up your phone, Dad?" Our phones were tucked away in our bags with the volume off. And he said, "The hospital's calling, parents have been calling. They're trying to tell you that Zach just got airlifted from the football field." He had been playing in a scrimmage that night, and he was airlifted to Boston Medical, and they were trying to reach us so that they could get permission for emergency brain surgery.
Wow.
So as soon as we got that call from our son, Nate, who was at our home, we raced to the hospital, and when we got there, the surgeons said, "We need to do a brain surgery, and the prognosis will be death to full recovery or anything in between.
Oh my God.
But we need you to sign the papers."
What a scary,
Yeah.
horrible thing to face.
So we just signed the papers, then we kissed Zach goodbye, prayed for him, and they wheeled him away. So 5 hours later, he came out of surgery, and the surgeon only talked to us for 30 seconds.
Oh, no.
He said, "We did what we have to do, now we have to wait and see." And then he just walked away.
Wow.
So nurses helped fill in the missing pieces, but Zach was in ICU for 5 weeks, and at first they just opened his skull cap to remove the blood. He had a brain injury playing football, and they needed to take out the blood, and they tried to keep the skull cap on, but they eventually had to take it off a few days later because the swelling was so great.
Wow.
So,
and that's
that was
another major procedure.
yeah.
When they do remove the skull, don't they have to put it inside the person?
Yeah, so it was in his abdomen.
Yeah, wow. So very invasive surgeries.
Yeah, so after 2 brain surgeries and then a lung surgery, he left the ICU, and we went to Spalding rehab. So we were there for 4 months, and he learned to walk again and sit and write a little bit and speak a little bit.
So after, so before you went to Spalding, what had they told you anything for a prognosis? He had a traumatic brain injury. Is he able to talk? Can you talk with him? Is he understanding you?
Yeah, so they went through
happening?
all these parts of the brain that were damaged, but they still didn't say what would come back and what wouldn't.
Right.
So I was still hoping things would come back, but his speech really didn't.
Yeah. The brain is such a tricky thing. No 2 brain injuries are alike. There's so many things going on that no 2 injuries are alike, so they can't guess at what's gonna be back. Wow.
Yeah, definitely. So the things that were hardest for me was the short-term memory and the speech.
Yeah.
So he's still at year 12 now, has hardly any short-term memory or speech.
Wow.
And I just loved connecting with him as a mom, but also we had a strong spiritual bond.
Yeah.
So we would sing together and pray together, and we would talk about how we're doing and what we're learning. And he just can't really talk anymore, so I mostly have to talk. And we just sit together in silence, or he plays the guitar and he plays the left hand because he has this long-term memory.
I saw, I think you have a website, patandtammymcleod.com, and you have such a beautiful layout there. You have video from before Zach's accident, and you have video from after the accident. And I was so touched when I saw the 2 of you sitting on the altar, singing and playing the guitar together. So you want to tell them how you 2 play the guitar together?
Yeah, so one thing we had to do is like revise our relationship, how we interact with each other, so we haven't lost the bond at all. It's still as strong as ever.
That's wonderful.
But we just have to do things differently. So since he has long-term memory, he can play the left hand of the guitar, and his right hand doesn't work very well, so he can't strum. So I do the right hand, he does the left hand, and I sing. Once in a while he throws a word in there.
That's so
We're singing,
amazing.
but it's really fun.
That's really great.
Yeah, he's the most happy, joyful person I know.
That's so good, because with brain injuries, some of the things that go are senses of humor and emotional connections. So that's just really great that he has that.
Yes, I actually think he knows when something's wrong with me and I don't know it. He'll ask, "How are you?" And I say, "Fine." And then I pause for about 10 seconds. And I say, "I'm not really fine. I'm not doing well right now." And so he picked it up without me even being aware of my own emotional state.
That's
so he
amazing.
Is really high
He's very connected with you still.
Yeah, and very funny. He does make jokes. He can type, so if he can't say something he wants to say, he just types onto his iPad what he
Oh,
wants
that's
to say.
great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. So, so there's a big, huge difference between how Zach was and how Zach now is. So, I know you had a ceremony about that. And first of all, how did you grieve?
Yes, I think that is one of the toughest things, because at the year anniversary, I thought, it doesn't look like he's going to have a full recovery. So I need to start adjusting and just adjusting my hopes, like what I would hope for the future. And so I started reading grieving books, like how do I deal with this grief? And the grieving books were not connecting with me. I just thought, the person I love did not die. The person I love is still here, but he's not the same. And so the books didn't help at all. And I kept asking colleagues and friends, do you have any books that address this type of loss that I'm dealing with? And nobody had any. So I finally called Spalding and said to the librarian, could you please get me the term so that I can research it? I want to write about my particular type of loss for a grad student paper. And he emailed back the next day with the term ambiguous loss. Pauline Boss coined the term in the 70s and wrote about it in 1999 in her book Ambiguous Loss. And when I got her book, I just thought, finally someone understands me. She talked about there's no linear process of letting go. Rarely is there acceptance, and there's never closure. And I just thought, yes. And then she said on top of that, it's rarely validated. Like there are no ceremonies for the type of loss. And so, like you said, we did choose to have a ceremony eventually. My husband wasn't into it at first, but after he read my paper on ambiguous loss, he said, I understand now why it's important. So we did.
So I saw some of that on your website, and I thought that was just beautiful. So you had several parts to your ceremony. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we decided, since Boss talked about the key to resilience in ambiguous loss is learning to live well with having and not having, that we would actually do a ceremony for each, having and not having.
And I have to say, I think this is so wonderful that you're working with that, because for some people, they're told you have to keep a stiff upper lip, be happy the person survived, and you still want more. You want that old person that was there. So that's the tough part. Is, what do you do? How do you move on and accept that this is the way life is going to be now?
Yeah, it's interesting. Pat and I went two different directions. He was focused more on the Zach we still had, and I was focused on grieving the loss of who Zach was. So it put a little tension on the marriage.
I'll bet it did, yeah.
And every year anniversary, like the first year, the second year, the third year, each year I would ask him, do you want to do something? Like have some kind of a ceremony, just the two of us? And he said, no, I don't want to do it. So I would just spend the day by myself in reflection and remembering who he was. And then usually that same day I would get together with Zach.
Yeah.
And he's so happy and joyful that if I'm sad, he doesn't understand why I'm sad.
I'm so glad you found that way to deal with it, because that's so important in order for you to go on with your life and to be able to enjoy Zach. So at the ceremony, what happened?
So we decided to have the two, and the first one was the ceremony of loss, and we called it a time to mourn and a time to dance, taken from the book of Ecclesiastes. And that one, we had people walk into the foyer of our church, and then we had tables set up. It was the lover of sport table with all of Zach's stuff on it that related to that. Then the lover of the outdoors, and we had all those things on the table that related to that. And then the lover of God. So we had his journals and his paintings and his drawings about God. on that table. And then we had one more table that had all of the notes and cards and banners and posters that people had made for Zach over the years to just show the support of people. And there were 150 people there, so they just milled around the tables, and then they went into the sanctuary. And we started by just showing a slideshow of Zach from birth to the injury. And then we had people take blue cards, and we gave 7 or 8 minutes of silence. And we asked them to just write the things that they missed about Zach, the things that they had lost. And then some of them stood up and shared. So his head of school and some of his best friends stood up and shared. We also had our kids share from the front. Everyone in our family decided to say, what do we miss about Zach?
Yeah.
You know, so of course I talked about what I miss most was his voice.
Yeah.
And so after that time,
This is powerful to be able to say those words out loud. That's part of letting go.
yeah, and some of the people thought, why are you having this service? They verbalized that to us, actually, because they had never seen anything like this before. And we invited them, and afterward they said, I didn't know how much I needed it. So it was actually grieving in community was really powerful. So
Yeah, Marquis agrees.
So I think that time of actually being in silence, writing losses and sharing them was powerful. And it was helpful to us because we got to hear people's losses. And as they went out, we had them put their losses, their blue cards, in a bottle, signifying the verse in Psalms that talks about God holds our tears in his bottle. And so then we went home and we actually got to read what everyone else lost.
That makes it more tangible for you. It's something to hold on to. If you can touch something, it somehow makes it seem a little bit better, a little more real.
So after talking about the losses in community, then we showed a slideshow from his injury to the present day, and it showed his recovery.
Celebrated his recovery.
And we ended with a litany of ambiguous loss. So it was interesting. Pauline Boss said, when you're in situations of ambiguous loss, you should have ceremonies or rituals, that it's really important because sometimes you get stuck in grief if you don't do that. And so this close friend of ours who also does what we do, he's a Stanford chaplain, wrote the litany. And so he would say a phrase, then we would say a phrase, and he would say a phrase. So the whole 150 people together said the litany, and that's how we closed it.
Wow, wow. That's so beautiful. That must have been powerful with everybody.
Yeah.
Like chanting.
Yep. And then most people came with us to the second part. So the first part was on the mourning, like what we had lost, or the not having part of ambiguous loss. And the second ceremony was a birthday party for Zach. So his birthday was 2 days after his injury. He was a junior in high school. And so the injury is September 5th, birthday September 7th. So when we had these two ceremonies, we put it on September 6th, right in between the 2 days.
Oh, nice.
To commemorate the two, having to hold both. So the second one, Zach was there. The first one, he was not. But when people came to the second one, it was basically a birthday party. And so he hugged everyone as they came in. He was so excited to see them. And then we gave people gold cards. And they wrote what they love about Zach. And they went up to the microphone and shared all the things they love about Zach. And then he would run up and hug them. So it was just a celebration.
Oh, that's so great. Does he still have those?
Yeah.
And does he look at them?
Yes. So we saved those cards also, the gold cards. And it was interesting because I read in brain injury literature that a lot of people lose their friends after a year. Pretty much the friend circle is gone.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, please no. So His friends, it's year 12, and they're still connected to him. They come.
That's amazing.
Every Thanksgiving weekend, they come see him. They text him, they call him, they talk to him on FaceTime.
I know these are his friends from school.
Yes.
And football.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's really amazing. That's great. So what's Zach's life like right now?
So he is living in a group home, as I said. So there's always 10 people in the home, and he loves people. He loves lots of action. So that's really fun for him. He lives in a really nice house. He has his own room, and he is transported to do whatever he wants to do. So before COVID, he was doing rock climbing, biking, rowing for community rowing out of Boston.
That's great.
He was the manager for the football team. So he actually helps with their water bottles when they come off the field. He hands them their water bottles.
Yeah, well, keep him connected to his sport he
School.
loved.
Yeah.
In school.
And he's now in MAB Community Services, so Massachusetts Association for the Blind. And they have brain injury services. I didn't know that, but I was so glad to find them. And so he has
Was his vision impaired?
Yes.
Yeah.
He has a right field block. So if he wants to see to the right, he has to turn his head the whole way to the right.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That was affected too.
Well, so that's great that he still has an independent life.
Yeah, he goes to a day program, but because DDS gave him a one-on-one person, because he has to wear a gait belt and someone has to hold on to it at all times. So if he falls, he can have another brain injury. He also chokes when he eats sometimes. So it would be easy for him to have an accident if he didn't have a one-on-one. So DDS knew they had to place him not only in a residential program and a day program, but they also had to add that other service on top.
Wow.
So someone sits by him all night long by his bed, and then they walk him to the bathroom. So he's 24/7 care, one-on-one. And then we have him come home every Sunday. So he comes home and we go to church together, eat lunch, and then we usually go out on Memorial Drive by the Charles River and ride bikes and things like that.
Oh, nice.
So,
wow, that's great. That's terrific that he recovered physically so well.
Yeah. So he really actually likes his life. So when I ask him, how do you like your house, Zach? He's like, makes a big noise. And then, how about your friends at the house? So yeah, he really enjoys the day program, and because of lockdown of COVID, he's missed his day program friends. And so he's been in the house the whole time. They did let him out so that we could see him. He came home for 3 months in the summer, but then they locked down again. So that was really hard to not get to see him. It's just not the same on FaceTime as getting to hug him.
No, it isn't. Not at all.
So
yeah, COVID really did such a number to all of us.
yeah, so we're glad he's out of lockdown again now, finally.
That's great. That's great. And and do you get to sing with him and play guitar very often?
So when he came out of lockdown, it was right at the end of the Easter week, and he came out right in time to sing. So he came out of lockdown on a Tuesday. We sang in church on a Wednesday. And I forgot to tell you that he is great in church. He's a greeter. So when people come in, everyone gets hugs. Not in the COVID days. We're online. We're not open yet.
Yeah.
But pre-COVID, he would just hug everyone, and they loved being greeted by Zach. And then we actually served communion together.
Oh, nice.
So I would say a phrase, the body of Christ, and then he would say, broken for you. So I would say half the phrase, he would say half the phrase.
Oh, that is so special.
And then the people would take the bread. So he's really great in church. When the preacher is preaching, if the preacher does something to cut himself down, he'll say, no! go, like right in the middle of the sermon. And he'll start clapping after people do a great song, but we don't usually clap in our church. So he's actually changed how people worship.
One of the symptoms of traumatic brain injury is having no filters. So you get honestly exactly how they're feeling.
Yes, it's great.
But that's nice that he has such happy and warm feelings.
Yes.
That's really great. So, well, I want to thank you very much. It's just been so wonderful having you here and hearing about Zach and hearing about your experience. And I know there are people who have ambiguous loss from not only traumatic brain injuries, which can include strokes and other types of things like that, but another group of people would be soldiers with PTSD coming home. Often the families will say, you're not the same person that I knew. So it's really good. So if people are interested, Tammy has a website, tammyandpatmcleod.com, and their book, Hit Hard, is on there. So, so with that, I'm going to tell you today's inspirational notable quotable, which again is from Anonymous. Anything that annoys you is teaching you patience. Anyone who abandons you is teaching you how to stand on your own 2 feet. Anything that angers you is teaching you forgiveness and compassion. Anything that has power over you is teaching you how to take your power back. Anything you hate is teaching you unconditional love. Anything you fear is teaching you courage to overcome your fear. And anything you can't control is teaching you how to let go. So I'd like to thank you for viewing our show and remind you that you can see us on WCTV Sundays at 6 o'clock, Comcast Channel 99, Verizon Channel 39, and WCTV.org video on demand. We are also on YouTube, where we're closed captioned for the deaf and hard of hearing. You can search for the words Access Abilities with no space 2020 and click on the icon of the Statue of Liberty seated in a wheelchair and you'll get our episodes. We're also on Facebook. So you can see us on Facebook at facebook.com/accessibilities2020. You can friend or follow us there or leave us comments on what you think of the show. Also, if you or someone you know would be interested in being a guest on our show, you can email me at accessibilities, all one word, 2020 @gmail.com. So in the meantime, stay positive and we will see you next time. Marquis, up. Okay, Marquis, say bye. Say bye. Yay, good job. Hey, come over here. Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you.
WCTV, connecting our community. WCTV, connecting our community. Wilmington, Massachusetts.